Hello and welcome to FTW Philly presented by Temple University. I'm your host, Marissa Magnata, joined as always by the wonderful Rosemary Necra Kelly. Necra, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing so well, Marissa. Hope you are too.
I am super excited because we're going to meet some cosplayers who are going to give us some tips about how to make the ultimate costume.
Oh, I'm so excited about this. I love cosplay, and one of my favorite cosplayers, the Philadelphia Fusion Zarya, is going to be featured in this episode.
On top of that, we've got our weekly gaming news, our esports news, and if there's any aspiring writers out there, we're going to meet somebody who took his play and turned it into a video game. I think it's time to get started. Are you ready?
I'm so ready. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
This week in esports news, we're kicking things off talking about the ESPN esports division. Just a little bit ago, ESPN laid off their entire esports editorial team, which came with a number of other layoffs for the entirety of ESPN. This included writers such as Emily Rand, Sean Morrison, and Jacob Wolf, who will no longer be writing content for ESPN esports. So what does this mean for the future of ESPN esports if there's no more editorial content? Well, in the past, ESPN has focused on shows, such as with titles like Overwatch, Rocket League, and League of Legends, but in the future has already secured deals to continue working on shows with titles like NBA 2K, Formula 1 Esports, and so much more. In some more positive news, the USA basketball team is recruiting for a national esports team. 30 of the top NBA 2K gamers have accepted an invitation for virtual tryouts, all in the hopes that they will represent the United States at the International Basketball Federation Open on December 19th to the 20th. The inaugural FIBA Open happened in June 2020, where the United States was not able to participate, but they're hoping to take home the trophy this time around. If you want to catch the action, you'll be able to watch it all live on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. On our first episode of For the Win Philly, we discussed how the San Francisco Shock won their second Grand Championship title for the Overwatch League. But now that we're entering into the offseason, we are seeing some significant roster changes already come through. But some of those changes might surprise you. Looking at some veteran players in the scene and what they're going to do for the next couple of seasons, we've already seen veteran talent talk about how they're planning on either moving on from the game of Overwatch or just taking a break from the game until maybe a couple seasons later. One of those players that's going to be retiring completely is Arc, who played for the Washington Justice just this past season. Other players such as Nevix from the San Francisco Shock and Surefour from Toronto Defiant are playing around with the idea of taking a hiatus from Overwatch League just to be able to reset their mentality and hopefully come back with a clearer head in future seasons. But this comes at a weird time for Overwatch, where a lot of other talent in the scene have decided to just move on from the game entirely, going over to greener pastures on the game of Valorant. This comes with players such as Sinatra moving over to the Sentinels, as well as Baby Bay from the Atlanta Reign moving over to FaZe Clan in the middle of the season to play the game of Valorant. What does this mean for roster moves and other veteran talent in the scene? Let's move over to another title in the Activision Blizzard wheelhouse. Let's talk about Call of Duty. Nadeshot has always been a staple in the Call of Duty scene, but originally 100 Thieves passed on franchise at the start of the Call of Duty League because they were priced at $25 million apiece, and 100 Thieves just didn't have the right funding for it at the time. A perfect opportunity arose for 100 Thieves when Immortals pulled Optic Gaming from CDL, buying the slot and introducing the LA Thieves. This is the second franchise team for the 100 Thieves, first being in League of Legends, where they bought that slot for $13 million in 2018. It's great to see Nadeshot and 100 Thieves return to Call of Duty after being such mainstays for the scene prior. The next CDL season is going to be played on the new main title, Black Ops Cold War. That's it for the esports headlines. Stay tuned, because Darth Mike debunks several reports of smoke coming out of Microsoft's latest console, and we hear from Jeremy Gable, a playwright turned programmer.
Welcome to Field of View with Nerd Street Gamers, your weekly dose of gaming news. I'm Darth Mike, and thanks to $25,000 raised for charity, I no longer have eyebrows or hair. So there's a bunch of news to get into this week. Let's not beat around the brow and get into it. Now you might be wondering where we are, and we're coming to you live from the sleepy town of Snacksburg from what may just be the sleeper hit of the holiday season, Bug Snacks. which is a game that is exactly as its name implies, a game where you catch bugs that have been crossbred with all sorts of snacky foods. So whether you're chasing down a honeybee that literally drips honey, or a strawberry with 6 legs scuttling about, there's all sorts of critters to chase. It's like Pokemon meets a fever dream. All of the creatures can only say their own names, and they've all got different tricks and tools that you use to capture them. Whether it's spraying a hamburger creature with ketchup to make him more vulnerable to being netted, or whether it's luring down an aerial pizza. Whatever it is, you've got to snag these creatures, take them back to the residents of Snacksburg, and then feed those residents the bug snacks to literally transform their appearance. They take on the appearance of whatever they've been eaten, so you can mutate them into all sorts of strange shapes and sizes and turn your town into a colorful amalgamation of a food fight. In an unfortunate bit of news last week, it seems that Capcom has been the target of a ransomware attack. Now, if you're not familiar with ransomware, it's basically where a group of hackers lock up your own internal computers and then try and sell your data back to you. And it seems that Capcom wasn't willing to play ball, they weren't willing to pay the ransom notice, and so instead the hackers just released all of their data onto the internet. Now, this is really unfortunate, especially because it may have compromised the personal information of some 350,000 employees and shareholders, which is really bad, but it does provide some interesting information for us, specifically when it comes to games that are on the horizon and their release dates. What we found out from it is that the next Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter Rise, is slated to release in March of 2021 and will be followed by a PC release in October of 2021, so nearly a 6-month gap there. Then we've also got a new Resident Evil game, Resident Evil Village, which will be coming in April of this next year. And then that's followed by another Monster Hunter side companion game, Monster Hunter Stories 2, which will be releasing in June of 2021. There's another interesting tidbit in there. It seems that Capcom may be developing a Resident Evil themed battle royale game. And if that is true, admittedly this information may be old and outdated, let me just say, Capcom, you don't need to. There's enough battle royales out there. It's a very saturated genre, and you're like 3 years too late to the party, so just maybe let that one go. Both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 dropped last week, and they are selling like hotcakes. So much so that both consoles are in short supply. And while restock should come in ahead of the holiday season, there may be shortages caused by manufacturing issues all the way up into 2021. Now, these are such hot consoles that apparently they've even been catching fire, although that was a hoax. It turns out a series of videos that appeared to show the Xbox Series X catching a flame was caused by people blowing vape smoke into the bottom of the console and letting the fan carry it out the top. This is such an issue that Xbox themselves released a statement saying, "Please do not blow vape smoke into your console," as if that needed to be said. Speaking of hot-selling properties, 2 big tentpole franchises released new games last weekend. I'm speaking, of course, about Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla, coming from Treyarch and Ubisoft respectively. Now, these 2 massive mammoth games were doing battles in the charts, and it seems like early on, Valhalla has the lead, outperforming Call of Duty in most markets. And that makes sense, folks, when you think about it, because 2020 is a year that's been characterized by doubts and insecurities about the future and about what's in the news. And in that kind of a climate, people would rather dive into a high fantasy Viking world where they get to explore and loot and pillage and fight, instead of diving into Call of Duty and rehashing the Cold War. I know, folks, a real shocker, that one. Would you fancy that? Well, that's it for us this week on Field of View with Nerd Street Gamers, your weekly dose of gaming news. Now, the weather seems to be picking up a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and try and find some shelter. Maybe I'll find some cuddly critters along the way, and who knows, maybe my lost eyebrows as well.
Did Darth look a little different to you this week?
You know, Marissa, come to think of it, he did. Was it the hat?
Probably the hat, not the missing eyebrows, right?
Well, the missing eyebrows are for a great cause. Darth Mike shaved off all of his hair except his mustache as a donation goal for the Movember Foundation.
All right, kudos to you, Darth. That was a pretty awesome move. Hey, and coming up, we're gonna meet a playwright named Jeremy Gable. He was able to take one of his works and turn it into a video game. He's gonna tell us how next.
My name is Jeremy Gable, and I'm a writer and game maker. Writing and storytelling are really fascinating to me because It's this ability to create an entire fantasy world, whether that's an actual fantasy world or just some scenario that you've never lived before, being able to craft that and then bring other people into it. Watch Me Jump is the story of Audra B. Mills. She's a WNBA player who is about to become the highest paid women's basketball player in the world. But then she has this scandal that happened a few months prior that's now coming to light that sort of snowballs into more scandal. And she has to spend this one long night trying to figure out how to keep her career and her dignity intact. When I decided to make a video game, Watch Me Jump was the one that made the most sense out of anything that I had written, because it takes place entirely in this hotel over the course of this one long night, so it felt very doable to adapt it from a play to a game. I've wanted to write for the gaming industry for a while. A lot of playwrights, because there's not much money in theater, go into television, but I've wanted to go into games. However, I have absolutely no gaming experience, so I think it was after my, fifth or sixth playthrough of Undertale and realizing that this was made by one person, I just sat down and I said, okay, maybe if I just give myself this goal to make a game, then that's how I can get started on this journey. And I was looking at all the stories that I had written, and out of all of them, Watch Me Jump seemed like perhaps the most adaptable to a game, both because it is something that takes place over the course of one night and takes place mostly in this hotel, so it felt like it was relatively easy to program, but also because it was a story that I had certainly never seen in a video game before and thought would be a really interesting choice as a story to tell, to introduce myself into this new industry. I think that adapting Watch Me Jump to a video game definitely gave me that ability to expand the story, specifically because when I was writing the play of it, I had, every time this character came to a crossroads and it's, does she say this or does she say this? I made that choice so that the play could continue. And so being able to go back to the story and go, but what if she did this instead, was really fascinating and really opened up the story and actually taught me more about the characters than I expected them to. And I think that one of the benefits of having the play already written was that it did make it a lot easier to craft the story, and also to program the game, because I had an idea of these are the things that I need to make in order to tell this story. So that foundation was already built. I think that storytelling through video games definitely makes the story more immersive, because for the most part, when you're reading a book or you're watching a movie or a TV show or something, you're watching someone do something, whereas in video games, you're the person that's doing it. So even if you're looking at Mario, you're still saying oh, I died. And so I think that storytelling in video games, it brings you into it and makes you a participant in the story in the way that other mediums don't. The process of starting Watch Me Jump with absolutely no game development experience at all was pretty wild. Fortunately, Game Maker Studio is a really great program to help you out in both learning how to make a game and then allowing you the tools to get more and more advanced with it. But it really just came down to, first things first, make a character, see if they can move up, down, left, right. Okay, great. Now can you make walls? Now can you move from room to room? And it really was just this process of making these little incremental steps. One of the bits of advice I got was make a small game before you make your big game. So technically my small game was make a character that moves up, down, left, right. Great, I've made that. Now make this, now make this. And it basically was just teaching myself little bits and little bits, more and more, until it came down to, okay, I have a character, they can move from room to room, I have a dialogue engine so they can make dialogue choices. So now I'm just gonna go from there and try to figure out how to make all of the little nuances along the way. All I really wanted to do was take the play and turn it into a video game, and I gave myself a year to do it. And at the end of the day, I made a lot of mistakes, but I took this play and I turned it into another medium, which is all I wanted. What I want my writing to do is to have someone experience it, they laugh, they get moved, it gets intense, and at the end of the day, they go, I didn't know that, and I'm so glad that I do now.
It's so wild how Jeremy just took a real-life story about a basketball player and turned it into a whole video game. I wonder if there was a video game of my life, what it would be. Maybe radio producer leaves work and hosts a gaming show.
Oh, that's a game I would totally want to play. I wonder
good.
what my video game would be. Maybe Esports Caster Simulator or How to Make a Cosplay.
Ooh, well, cosplayers are characters in themselves, for sure. In fact, we're going to meet some of them after the break.
Hi, my name is Daniela Manzano.
Hello, I'm Tom Morris.
I'm Steffane Creighton.
American Smoke Moran, and today I am wearing M. Bison.
What drew me into cosplay was just for one day, I didn't have to be myself. It was just really fun to embody someone that I like.
I basically spend all my time thinking about cosplay. If I'm watching a TV show, I'm like, oh, I want to do that character. If I'm playing a game, I'm like, oh, that would be an awesome cosplay. I'm dressed as Diva from Overwatch. Diva's very bubbly, kind of hyper.
She's kind of like the rapper in the KDA group. She also has this aspect of like tomboy to her, which I identify with.
It's mostly just mannerism, so I like to, do the general, like she flexes a lot. She has a dance, and I try to learn that.
He's like the ultimate terrorist. He's the ultimate bad guy. When people see me as M. Bison, they want to get pictures with me and all because they love, and they're like, oh my gosh, he hit it right on the nose. It's spot on. And that is a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun. I tell people all the time, cosplayers are three-dimensional artists that bring two-dimensional works to life.
Bringing a cosplay together really requires like finding the right material. It does require a little bit of hunting, sometimes some Amazon, sometimes some custom pieces being built, sometimes just thrifting certain items.
For my first one, actually, I made the entire thing. I sewed it myself. My mom had a sewing machine, and my best friend in middle school was also really into it, so she helped me too, and she knew how to sew. So we kind of like helped each other grow and make our costumes ourselves.
When people see pipes or cleaning solvents or foam, I see, well, let's see, I can use that for this weapon or create this sword. But if you have a love for the craft, you learn as you go at the same time too. And that's how you become more perfected artists within the cosplay realm.
The most I've spent is probably around $800 to $900.
About $3,000.
Anywhere between $5,000 or I paid less than $10 for one.
It's a lot of fun, especially when you spent a lot of time creating a cosplay, and it's like an instant connection with the people around you. You can see people smile, or if it's a hated character, they're like, oh no.
My favorite part of cosplaying is definitely got to be meeting people, whether it be other cosplayers or people just saying like hi and like saying like, oh man, your costume's cool, or wanting a picture, wanting to take your picture.
Sometimes people like the way that their personality is. So they call it LARPing, but like live action role play. So they'll go to conventions and actually act like the character themselves. That one I love doing Harley Quinn for because it gives me an excuse to act like kind of crazy and fun. And that's not something I would normally do.
Crossplay is kind of generally the idea of a man or a woman reversing gender roles, basically. So my example, again, is Zarya, who's a female Russian bodybuilder, and I am not any of those things. And this was the first time I had found a character that I was really into, that I was like, I think I can do this. And so the first time I wore it, I actually was very worried about, because I was like, I don't know how to feel about this. I don't know how people are gonna react to this. Somebody came up to me and like, kind of emotionally told me that like it really meant a lot to them that I was here in like a Zarya cosplay, as like a woman with a beard, basically. And it really surprised me. Seeing a bearded female Zarya was the thing he needed. Like that was the thing that made him really happy to see, and he was really emotional about it. And that kind of like, I think is the essence of what like that kind of can really do.
That kind of goes back to my childhood, and the reason why I cosplay is I really didn't get to experience a lot of expression of self when I was younger. And that's due to like my family, society at the time. I've seen people kind of bully others, and I'm pretty proud of what I've seen as far as the community not endorsing that kind of behavior. They usually say, hey, like just let them be, they can do what they want, and we don't want to make a culture that's restrictive on any kind of race or gender identities.
To me, it's being a bigger than life character. When they see me, they don't see me as a size or a color. They're like, oh my God, this person does a perfect Superman or a perfect Captain America. And they want to get pictures with me and all because they love, and they're like, oh my gosh, he hit it right on the nose. It's spot on. When you're on that stage, you're becoming that character. Have fun with it. Show off the character that you love.
It gives people the bravery to express themselves in the way that they want and really bring out their creativity also.
It was considered like, oh, look at the nerd, or look at the geek and all that stuff. And then more people started saying, wait a second, I want to become one of the cool kids, because now the cosplayers became the cool kids. Mentally for me, therapeutically for me, it's made a difference. Collaborating with other cosplayers and prop makers to make these costumes come to life, to be able to form friendships, to be able to meet so many different people, it's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of fun.
Ooh, I know firsthand how expensive some of those cosplays can really be.
I mean, $3,000, $5,000?
I know, right? The price tags are tremendous, but what's really cool is the creativity that a lot of these cosplayers use to look at a specific material and know it's perfect for a type of weapon or a certain type of armor.
Yeah, I appreciate their ingenuity. By the way, my craft store does not have a cosplay section. I'm gonna have to talk to them about that.
They would be the perfect people to talk to. But we had some incredible conversations just across the board today.
We did. I hope Jeremy inspired some young writers out there and showed them that their works can be turned into a video game. Plus hair chat, you're not gonna get that every week from us.
No, you're not.
Well, for Necra and myself and the whole team behind FTW Philly, presented by Temple University, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.